Breaking tonight, Belarus is rattling sabers on NATO's doorstep while Russian drones and jets probe Allied airspace. The play is blunt: create fear, slow Western deliveries of air defenses to Ukraine, and buy Moscow time to seize more ground. This isn't stray radar noise. It's a pressure campaign with real Article 5 implications for Poland, the Baltics, and every capital watching. Quick vote: if an unidentified drone crosses a NATO border, should it be shot down every time? Yes or no? And why? Here's what we know. Minsk is turning up the volume. Belarusian leadership says any downing of its aircraft by Poland would trigger an immediate response. They even name-check the Belovizhskaya Pushcha forest on the border, signaling how close and how fast a miscalculation could happen. Pair that with Russia's recent pattern: drones toward Poland and Romania, jets skirting Estonian airspace with transponders dark, and the eastern flank is now a live-fire stress test of Allied rules. Why do this? Fear slows logistics. If European governments worry that a single shootdown could spiral into a broader fight, some may hesitate on shipments or approvals. Every week, Ukraine waits for interceptors, radars, or spare parts is a week Russia's missiles and glide bombs have more room to operate. Delay on the tarmac turns into damage on the ground. Poland's answer is firm and normal statecraft. If we can't identify it and it enters our sky, we take it down. That's not escalation, that's sovereignty. Any nation with borders and citizens to protect would publish the same rule. What's unusual is the outrage when a neighbor says the obvious out loud. At the UN and other forums, Moscow keeps pushing the line that NATO and the European Union are directly participating in a war against Russia. That language is designed to blur red lines. It also fails the reality test. If NATO were fighting directly, the battlefield would look very different. The alliance position has been consistent. We don't want a NATO-Russia war. There are no official NATO combat brigades in Ukraine, and volunteers are not the same as deployed state forces. The Kremlin's rhetoric tries to erase that distinction because gray zones are where pressure campaigns live. Now to the deterrence debate. The conversation about long-range systems has shifted from whether to how. Tomahawk-class reach would put key Russian hubs inside a deterrent arc. The logic is harsh, but familiar. When the cost of aggression climbs, appetite falls. Even U.S. voices that were skeptical of big aid packages now emphasize European skin in the game, with Washington helping partners buy what they need rather than footing every bill. That matters because it signals durability. Pressure won't peel allies off with a few flybys and a flurry of drones. Belarus's role is bigger than speeches. We've seen this movie. In 2021, exercises set the stage for a mass Russian troop buildup near Ukraine. Months later, the invasion began. A smaller drill isn't harmless, it's ambiguous. A small unit crossing a line by mistake, a launcher firing at the wrong moment. Manufactured confusion can spark a real crisis. That's the point. Stretch decision makers, create fatigue. Wait for a bad call, the Baltics are feeling it too. Transponders off, radios quiet, tight radar tracks near the line. The goal isn't to start a dogfight, it's to force NATO controllers and pilots to make hard calls with a stopwatch running. The more calls you force, the higher the odds someone slips. Deterrence works best when rules are crisp. This pressure campaign thrives on fuzziness. Meanwhile, Europe's center of gravity has held better than many predicted. The core trio: avoid a NATO-Russia war, keep Article 5 credible, and ensure any eventual settlement leaves Ukraine protected, drives policy. That's why air defenses remain the priority. If Kyiv can't blunt missiles, there is no durable peace. If Moscow thinks incremental gains are still possible, there is no incentive to negotiate. Range, precision, and accountability are not talking points. They're the ingredients of a settlement that sticks. Russia's own messaging gives the game away. Calling Allied backing direct war sits next to demands for an ever wider security zone to the west. That's not defense. That's appetite dressed as strategy. Add outreach to partners for ammunition and other support, and you see the cost of a long war on Russia's arsenal and manpower. Pressure on NATO borders is cheaper than breaking through fortified lines. It's political warfare with aircraft and UAVs. The human cost makes this real. A strike in Kyiv recently turned a family home into splinters. The owner, a pastor, called it a miracle that his children survived. That is what thin air defenses look like. It's the chain from a radar blip to a scramble order, to whether a neighborhood lives through the night. When Poland says we will shoot down unidentified objects, that is not theatrics. It's the difference between a controlled incident at the perimeter and wreckage in a living room. So what happens next? Expect clearer rules, faster timelines, and fewer surprises. First, a sharpened shoot-down doctrine on the frontier. Identify quickly, engage early, document everything. The closer to the line an object is stopped, the less room there is for narrative games after. Second, movement on long-range and integrated air defense. More interceptors, more sensors, more shared data, paired with conditions that reduce escalation risk while restoring deterrence. Third, tighter transparency. Timestamps, coordinates, aircraft types. Facts crowd out fiction. Belarus can threaten. It can drill. It can fly close. It cannot change the math. If an aircraft or drone violates a NATO border, the state it crosses has the right to act. If a government wants a quiet frontier, it does not keep testing it. And if Russia wants leverage at a bargaining table, it won't get it by bullying neighbors while complaining those neighbors enforce basic rules. There's a political layer here too. When European budgets buy more interceptors, shells, and missiles, public support hardens on both sides of the Atlantic. Voters see burden sharing. Lawmakers see shared risk. The wedge Moscow hoped to drive doesn't split the board when each capital owns a piece of the bill. Language matters, but capability changes behavior. Calling allied support direct participation doesn't make it so. Calling a routine air policing rule an act of war doesn't make it so. Clear rules, credible timelines, and visible consequences do change things. The cleaner those are, the less room there is for stunts, and the safer the line becomes. If you live anywhere along NATO's eastern edge, the principle is simple. Borders are borders. Airspace is airspace. Announced rules reduce risk. That's why Poland's clarity matters, why Baltic vigilance matters, and why measured policy beats manufactured drama every single day. Belarus isn't strong enough to fight Poland alone. It is loud enough to keep the cameras rolling. Russia isn't strong enough to take everything it wants in Ukraine. It is cynical enough to try new ways to raise the cost for those who resist. The next weeks will test whether firmness and restraint can live together on Europe's edge. They can. They must.